Okay, take a look at page Perek Chav Zayin Pasuk Aleph.
72.
What page?
72.
Okay, so here the Torah starts talking about. I started explaining this yesterday. There are different pledges that a person makes. All right, let's read a few psukim. I'm going to read about 4 or 5 psukim over here. Okay, so don't just stay with it for a second. Daber Hashem al Moshe lemor. Top of page 718. Hashem says, "Daber al bnei Yisrael ve'amarta aleim ish ki yafli neder be'erkachat nefashos laHashem." When a man expresses a vow based on the value, how did the article translate it? Regarding the valuation of living beings. So, a guy says there are 2 possible things you could say. A person could say erki alai. Erki alai means he's pledging his value to the Beis HaMikdash, which is an objective value. The Torah is going to tell us what the values are in a second. We'll see. There's somebody who says there's erki alai and there is dummy alai. Dummy alai means I'm pledging my value. That doesn't have an objective value. There's an assessment made by experts. How much would this guy fetch on the market if he was being sold as a slave? And that's not an objective value. I mean, if the guy's a rare painter and you want to buy a slave, or he's a dancer, the Gemara talks about slaves who would dance as entertainers, non-Jewish slaves who would go and entertain people, or a guy is a diamond cutter, or a guy's so he's going to fetch more money. If all a guy could do is plow a field, he's going to get less money. If a guy is missing a limb, so he's going to get less money on the market as a slave. If a guy, he can produce money. He's great at Bitcoin, right? So then he's he probably he'll get more money on it. Don't ask me what Bitcoin. To this day, I don't understand it. I only know that people either make a lot of money or get cleaned out. That's what I know. Usually the latter. Is that true?
Yeah.
Usually the latter. I did tell you about a guy. I read about a guy. Remember I told you this guy was selling high-end watches. This guy was selling. There's a firm guy. He said about himself openly, "I am a multimillionaire from high-end watches." But at one point in his career, somebody owed him $25,000 for a watch. That wasn't even the price of the watch. It wasn't the price of the watch. The watch cost about, he sells watches that go up to $250,000, $300,000. His watches cost what my house costs, and his what he costs. So some guy owed him $25,000. He paid him in 1,000 bitcoins, and the guy himself, and this is what's amazing is the guy himself, instead of checking into it, he didn't know much about Bitcoin, so he just took him and moved him on to somebody else for a song, and kept one of them. And then he said, had he kept those Bitcoins today, those 1,000 Bitcoins are worth $65 million. And here's a guy who himself is a multimillionaire. He said he had to go to therapy because he was so depressed about messing that one up. So what do you call it? So a slave, there are 2 things you could say. You could either say erki alai, or you could say dummy alai. And then how you assess him is going to be different. The Torah here is talking about where a guy says erki alai. The guy says erki. Now let's read the psukim. So what happens? What are the objective values? Okay? 3rd line from the top. V'haya erkecha hazachar, the value of a male, mi ben esrim shana ve'ad ben shishim shana, from 20 to 60, the prime years. V'haya erkecha chamishim shekel kesef v'shekel hakodesh. 50 shekels by its time the shekel hakodesh. That's a certain denomination. V'im nekevahi, if it is a female type person, then, and she pledges it, my veil, she says erki alai, or a man could even say erka alai, I pledge her value. Then v'haya erkecha shloshim shekel. Then hers is 30. A man between 20 and 60 is 50. A woman is 30. V'imi ben chamesh shanim ve'ad ben esrim shana, between 5 and 20. V'haya erkecha hazachar esrim shkalim, between the ages of 5 and 20. A man is 20. V'lanakeva aser shkalim, a woman is 10. How does a 5-year-old pledge a value? They can't, because what they do until bar mitzvah means nothing. But a father, for example, could say, I pledge my 7-year-old son's value, erko alai. then it's an objective value is 20. If it's a daughter, erka olai. It's an objective value 20 or 10. 1 second. I'm reading it all for a reason. I'm going to show you in a second. V'imi ben chodesh v'ad ben chamesh shanim, between a month and 5 years old, which again is going to be a precocious youngster who could go and actually make a pledge. So we're not talking about precocious youngsters, we're talking about adults who make the pledge on behalf of the youngster. The male is 5, and the woman is 3. One more pasuk. V'imi ben shishim shana v'mala, 60 and on. Im zachar, if it's a male, v'ayarkacha chameshes shakol, drops from 50 to 15 after 60 years old. V'lanakeva asar shkal, for a woman, 10. So listen to the numbers that we have. This is remarkable. Think there are accidents in Torah? There ain't no accidents. Did you ever hear of Ron LaFleur? Ron LaFleur was a baseball player, and he had been in a state penitentiary, and he became a major league. He learned he was apparently a good ball player until he robbed a bank, then went to a penitentiary in Michigan, practiced while he was in baseball, and he actually played for the White Sox. He was a decent player. So Ron LaFleur, his brother was apparently a gang member, did not learn Mesilas Yesharim, and his brother got killed. His brother was shot in some sort of altercation. They call it an altercation. His brother was shot. So they were interviewing Ron LaFleur, and they said to him, "Well, Ron, what?" And this is going back to the 70s. Ron, what do you say about your brother's getting killed? He said, "Look, he got shot by a sawed-off shotgun from 3 feet away. That wasn't no accident." That was a phrase he used. That wasn't no accident, right? A sawed-off shotgun from 3 feet away. So that became a catchphrase in my house. Like, for example, when my mother would open the freezer, and she'd say, "Hey, somebody ate some of the brownies," and I'd say, "That wasn't no accident." And that's how I managed to get out of a lot of situations, usually involving freezers, where mom like what and got her laughing, and then scampered off happily. So there are no accidents in Torah. So listen to the denominations that we have. Now stay with me here. Okay, ready to do some math? Okay, here we go. Between the ages of 30 days and 5 years old, what are the prices? 5 for a boy, 3 for a girl. Keep track of the number. How much is that? 5 for a boy, 3. How much is 5 and 3? 8. Yeah, we should be able to do that now without a calculator. Nobody pull out your thing. Okay, we're at 8. Between the ages, that's between 1 month and 5 years old. Those are the numbers the Torah gives. Between 5 years old and 20, it's 20 for a male and 10 for a female. How much are we up to? 30. 38. Okay. In total, keep it running total now. Between the ages of 20 and 60, it's 50 for a male and it's 30 for a female. So how much are we up to?
116. 118, yes.
We were up to 38 before, weren't we?
118.
Plus 80 is 118. Right. So I was right. Oh, that was embarrassing. Now, so we're up to 118. Okay. After 60, it's 15 for a man and 10 for a woman.
33.
143. 143. What is the significance of the number 143? There are 143 as a random 143. Well, we just read the curses. In the book of what we just read, there are 98 curses. In in Sefer Devarim, there are 45 curses. In Devarim, there are 98 curses. 98 and 45 is how much? 143. What a coincidence. There are 143, 45, and 98. Guys, come on. I can't, I'll teach you Gemara. I shouldn't have to teach you arithmetic at this point. This is something you should have been able to do by this point. 45 and 98 is 143. So there are 143 curses, And then there are 140, mysteriously, we end up with 143, the number 143, when it comes to giving a pledge of tzedakah. What is the Torah teaching you? The Torah is teaching us that when a person sees that he has some sort of trouble in life, what do we resort to? Tzedakah. Tzedakah tatzil mimavis. The pasuk says, tzedakah saves from death.
Being a
So
slave
the,
is tzedakah.
what's that?
Being a slave is tzedakah.
He's not becoming a slave.
This is what it's about, no?
Not being a slave. No, he's pledging his value. He's pledging his value. He's not turning himself into the Beis HaMikdash. A guy is saying, again, I didn't make it clear. It's my fault. A guy decides he wants to make a contribution to the Beis HaMikdash. So he says, Erki Alai, for example. A guy says, I pledge my value to the Beis HaMikdash. I want to give a monetary gift to the Beis HaMikdash. How does it? I pledge it. How do I pledge it? By saying Erki Alai.
So his worth as a slave.
Not a slave. We're not on a slave yet. When he's listen. Listen. When he says Erki Alai, there's an objective value no matter who he is. It could be the richest Jew in the world. He could be a high-level CEO, and he could be a bus driver. It doesn't make a difference. When he says Erki Alai, if he is a male between the ages of 20 and 60, he owes the Beis HaMikdash 50. If he's a female, well, if she's a female, look, I gotta be careful nowadays. If she's a female, she owes the Beis HaMikdash 30. That is if he said Erki Alai. If he said Dami Alai, then we assess him. Again, it's a monetary thing. But to determine his value, we assess if, for example, if he would be sold as a slave. We're not selling him as a slave. If he were sold as a slave, how much would he get on the open market? And then that's what he has to pay the Beis HaMikdash. He's not becoming a slave over here. No slavery. Okay? That's what. So the Torah says that they're not coincidentally, to quote my friend Ron LaFleur, right? No accidents. Right? 143 is corresponding to the 143 curses that we find in the Torah, and that's a life lesson that when a person, and it's always a good thing to get, it's a good thing to give tzedakah when things are going well, and it's a good thing, it's a tremendous merit for people, somebody who has a life issue, that they should give tzedakah, and the pasuk says, tzedakah tatzil mimaves. Tzedakah saves from death. And that's why in Erev Yom Kippur, that's one of the plates in the shul that they have is the tzedakah. There are always tzedakah plates in the shul, which, by the way, is for giving, not for taking. You're meant to put. It's not like help yourself over here. It's a tzedakah. It's not like the Baptist church that had installed cameras somewhere in Virginia or something that had installed cameras because money was disappearing from the plate. So they apparently were more into taking than giving. But you prayed for money and then you got right, and then then somehow your prayers were answered pretty quickly. But they thought not and had to install cameras. In shuls, you don't need to install cameras. You need to install cameras. Maybe they have to install cameras to check the people in the Kiddush club what kind of booze they're drinking, but they don't have to install cameras for the tzedakah plate. That doesn't disappear. Okay, so. Why does tzedakah? It's an interesting thing. The pasuk, there's a pasuk in Mishlei, tzedakah tatzil b'maves. Why does tzedakah? What's the midah keneged? Hakadosh Baruch Hu works midah. What's the midah keneged midah? The answer is that tzedakah is twofold. Number one, the Medrash says you can have a guy who he's starving to death. He needs to buy a loaf of bread to keep himself alive. A loaf of bread costs 10 prutas. He's only got 9 prutas. So you give him a pruta. So what have you done? Now he could buy a loaf of bread. You've literally saved his life. By giving him tzedakah, you literally saved the guy's life. So tzedakah, so midah keneged midah, Hakadosh Baruch Hu spares a person's life because he saved somebody's life by giving tzedakah. It could be literal. In the old days where people were starving, you gave them that 1 pruta and you gave the guy's life, number one. Number two, I told you this a while ago, where does anybody get money from? All right, Israel gets it from the United States, but where does everybody else get money from? How do you ever get money? You work. And when you work, trees, huh? When you work, so what you're doing is you're giving up part of your life to earn money because time is life. So when you've worked, you've given up a day's worth of work. You've given up 8 hours in order to earn $100. Then you give 10% of that to a poor man. You're giving away your time. You're giving away your life. Because it was your life that earned the money. Tzedakah tatzil mimavis. You've given up part of your life, therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu returns it by you giving it back to the tzedakah. That's why the tzedakah tatzil mimavis, that's why it works that way. Yeah.
It doesn't necessarily have to be the Jewish community. Tzedakah.
The rules of tzedakah are that you give tzedakah aniyei ircha kodbim. That means tzedakah and chesed works in a series of concentric circles. First, you take care of your inner circle, then you take care of your outer circle. You take care of your family first. After you've taken care of family, you take care of the poor of your community. After the poor of your community, you get to worry about the poor of other communities. We don't give tzedakah to non-Jews not because we have anything against non-Jews as long as they leave us alone. We have nothing against them per se. But since if you have a brother and you have a friend and they're both hurting for money, everybody intuitively, who do you give money to?
Your brother.
You give money to your brother. The Jewish people are a family. Theoretically, if you took care of all the Jewish poor in the world, there were no more Jewish people in the world, then we could start worrying about everybody else. But until that point, since there are Jewish people, so we give to the Jews, we don't give to the non-Jews. You do give, by the way, for what's called darkei shalom. If you're walking past a bunch of panhandlers, guys are waiting there for tzedakah, and one of them happens to be a goy, the rest of them are Jewish. So then there you give what's called darkei shalom, or if you're solicited by an organization, so you give them a couple of bucks for darkei shalom to maintain peaceful coexistence. But by the letter of the law, we don't give tzedakah to goyim. The letter of law for peaceful coexistence. Yeah, what are we going to ask?
Should we calculate where our meiser and tzedakah goes to? Meaning, like, is it preferable that we give our tzedakah to a yeshiva rather than a synagogue?
Oh, good question. It is preferable. The best form of giving tzedakah is to poor Torah scholars, or to marry off poor brides. And if a person has the ability to give, sometimes people want to do something, for example, in the merit of a family member who died. They want to give tzedakah in their merit. So they'll die, they'll buy a sefer, they'll donate a sefer Torah to a shul, they'll buy a nice parocha. These are all wonderful and nice things, but they're very low on the hierarchy of what you can do with her. There's actually a Gemara in Shekolim that says, two Amoraim were walking, and when they're walking through a town, one of them said, my ancestors built all these shuls. All these shuls are my ancestors built the shuls. The other Amar said, what, there weren't poor scholars learning? They had to go and spend the money on the shuls? What about the poor scholars? That's much higher merit. The highest merit could be, that's why if you donate to a yeshiva or a kollel and people learn Torah, that's the highest merit you get, unless there's a poor bride that needs to be married off. That's number one. But to give, people are always confused. People like to see a concrete result. So people spend a lot of money and donate a sefer Torah to a shul, which is a very nice thing. And sometimes the sefer Torah sits there in the Aron Kodesh. It doesn't even get read too often. That was not the best. Look, everything, we need everything. We need, and you're not limited. You could give a little bit of money to another community, but the brunt of your money should be going to the poor of your family and the poor of your city. Aniyei ircha kodbin. The poor of your town, the poor of your city, they come first. So it's always best to give the money to Ohr Somayach, to yeshivas and people who are studying Torah. That's always the best thing. If a person has some idea, listen, communities do need sefer Torahs, right? But there will always be somebody to donate that. But the best money is for Waco. By the way, the Gemara says tzedakah is compared to a suit of armor. How so? Do you ever see the old days? There are two types of suits of armor. There's like the real stiff ones that look like the Tin Man on the Wizard of Oz, where you can barely move. But then they have the suit of armor that's made of little scales, right? What's it called? Chainmail. Oh, thank you. Yes, it's chainmail. Chainmail. What do you call it? The Gemara in Baba Basra compares tzedakah to a chainmail suit of armor. The same way that a chainmail suit of armor protects the person wearing it, the tzedakah that you give becomes a chainmail suit of armor. And there's no coincidence that they're comparing it in a chainmail thing. It's a bunch of little round things that are next to each other, like the little round coins that a person gives in the course of a lifetime. So these little round coins symbolically create a spiritual chainmail protection for the person in this world and in the world to come. I think what's the thing called? What do they call? They used to call it bling. What do they call now? A grill? What your ice, or is it not called a grill?
Grills for your teeth. You have diamonds in your teeth. It's called grill.
That's what they were talking about.
Yeah, so those guys have put those diamond teeth, those rappers and gold teeth.
The rappers, the rappers have diamond teeth.
Grills.
Yeah.
Or gold or
Gold
silver.
teeth. Gold.
What does that mean?
Grills.
'Cause
Like
I-
diamond installed on your.
You know, I'm asking you this important piece of information because Trump had a meeting, had like a rally, and there were these two rappers who, of course, have already on trial for murder, and they were up on stage. One is something G, and the other one, both. Each one is more unappealing looking than the other. But they had, and Trump at a certain point says, "Wow, I admire your grill." So I thought the grill was the thing because they're wearing a lot of ice. So I thought, so the grill, what do they do? It's like dentures that they put in the.
Yeah. The grill imitates the car. The car has a grill.
The car.
According to their words.
So but they actually make dentures out of diamonds and put it in their mouth.
Gold, diamond, whatever.
Sometimes you can take them.
I mean, you're looking at me like, yeah, this is perfectly normal. Yeah, it's perfectly normal behavior. No, it's not. Let's get that clear. No, it's not. No, it's not. Yeah, we put a diamond on somebody's ring. You put a diamond in a ring and you give it to a girl if she deserves it, but that's about it. We're not putting diamonds in our teeth. It's bad.
Don't knock it until
Wow. Yeah, don't knock it till you try.
This week you have the most dazzling smile.
Yeah, how do you like my grill? Believe me, if I had gold or diamonds, they wouldn't be going in my teeth. That I can tell you. Wow, what a world. Okay, beautiful. All right, now 1 second. 1 second. Now, that's just terrific. That's just so impressive. Okay, now, the other idea here is like this. Let's go back to what Yitzchak was asking. Rabbi Feinstein says, why are there two ways to assess ourselves? What's the lesson of having two ways to assess ourselves? One is the objective value, and one is the slave market value of what a person would be worth on the market. Okay, so Rabbi Feinstein says the Torah is trying to communicate. It's not because we're looking for money. The Torah is trying to communicate an idea to us about our achievements in life. And what that means is as follows. Each one of us has a basic natural level. And at our natural level, we could do very nicely. At our natural level, you get up, you daven, and you learn daf yomi, and you do some chesed. That's great, and you're a very fine Jew. That's the objective level. That's erki alai. That's the objective level, and you're a very wonderful Jew if you do that. Okay. There's another level where you could actually break through and get to a higher level. Requires effort. It requires effort. So, for example, the White Sox, it hurts me to say this, but they actually had a good player once. And years ago, they haven't had one since, but they actually had a good player. They had a catcher named Brian Downing. Any of you ever hear of Brian Downing? Didn't think so. Brian Downing was a major leaguer, first of all. To get to the major leagues, the amount of people, the chances of an American kid who wants to play professional baseball, your chances of getting to the major leagues are very, very slim. The minor leagues are filled with thousands of players, all of who are trying to get to the major leagues, and very few of them ever do. Brian Downing was a good player. He was a good catcher. He was a decent player, and he hit about 265, 270, something like that. He spent the summer he spent the off season. What he did was, he came back the next year, and all of a sudden he's hitting 320, 330, and all of a sudden, what happened? In the off season, he bought himself a pitching machine. And what he did with this pitching machine is he cranked it up to about 110, 120 miles an hour and tried to hit a baseball coming in at 110, 120 miles an hour. Well, after you've done that for a few months, then you see a guy throwing 95. It looks like a big watermelon coming up to the plate. So by pushing himself further, by pushing himself to the extreme, it then became easier for him to fit. He didn't last too long at that level. Well, yeah, he was a White Sox after all. But the idea is, he was good enough at 270, but you push yourself. That's dummy alai. Dummy alai, says Rav Moshe. Erki alai means you could cruise along and you're a good Jew. But you can also be a dummy alai. Dummy alai means I really want to break through and achieve a higher level. And that's what it takes to achieve a higher level. Jerry West did the same thing, by the way. Jerry West, you've heard of, right? Everybody's heard of Jerry West.
No.
Are these more sports characters?
No, they're not characters. They are some of the most important people. They are some of the most important people on on planet Earth. They're also the most overpaid people on planet Earth. Jerry West was arguably, up until this era, he was arguably the best shooting guard in NBA history till Steph Curry came along and all these guys shooting threes. But when I was growing up, Jerry West was arguably the best shooter till Larry Bird came along. Now Jerry West he put up a basket in his yard. You know that the rim of a basketball, the rim could fit exactly 2 basketballs through it. This is something you should have known by now. A basketball rim is exactly the diameter of 2 basketballs could fit through it. Jerry West put up a basket in his yard that was smaller, only a basketball and a half could fit through. So when you shoot on that, if you start getting good at that, then when you walk, there's a thing flying around here. When you walk out on the court, so then the big basket, it looks like it's much easier because now you're used to being more precision with the thing. Larry Bird was a great shooter. He used to shoot 500 shots a day in practice. Did you know that? Now Larry Bird, without practicing, would have been fine. He was better than anybody else. Yet he pushed himself. That's the dummy alai. I'll tell you, I once had a conversation with my mother. Oh, you love this. My mother was a nurse, and you call them characters, right? My mother was a nurse. And she worked hard, and she did night shifts, the whole thing. And there was a Cal Ripken Jr., you heard of Lou Gehrig, right? So Lou Gehrig had set the record for consecutive baseball games. He played 2,130 consecutive baseball games, and eventually Cal Ripken broke his record and played 2,142 games. The day he broke the record, consecutive, that means he played 15 years plus without ever missing a game. So my father-in-law, the day he broke the record, my father-in-law and I were discussing this because this was important news. And we're talking about, well, he was a first baseman, he was a shortstop, he would have gotten either, it's even more of an achievement. You know, we're going, learning it up good and proper. And my mother was in the background, and my mother said at a certain point she'd had about enough. And my mother said, so big deal, he went to work every day. I also went to work every day. I said, yeah, but Mom, you were a nurse. He was a baseball player. He contributes to the world. It was tuna for fish for me that day. So, you call them characters. There's a lot to learn from them. You're right. They are, characters. But there is in their effort, in their endurance, there's what to learn. Okay. Now take a look at next point. The Chaf Zayin, Pasuk Zayin. And this is where, you'd think the Torah has a sense of humor when you see this. It's one of the most important lessons of the Torah, and you should learn this lesson now because it'll save you a lot of aggravation later. Page 718, Pasuk Zayin. So the Torah says, V'imi ben shishim shana v'mala, from 60 years and up, im zachar, if he's a male, v'haya erkecha chamisha asar shokel, v'lanekeva asar shkolim. Now, you have a drop when people pass 60 years old. So the Torah says, well, he was a male. Before 60, how much was it? 50. And it dropped to 15, which is over 2/3. A woman was at 30, and she dropped to 10, which is only 2/3. That means the man had a bigger drop than the woman.
From 50 to 60?
From 50 to 15. After age 60. After age 60, he drops him. Up till age 60 was 50. After age 60, it drops to 15. A woman up till age 60 was 30, and after age 60, it drops to 10. So a man, has a bigger drop than a woman does.
She has 75% drop.
Whatever the percentage is, however you calculate it, his drop is bigger than her drop, right? Take a look at Rashi on Pasuk Zayin. And this is a vital life lesson. V'imi ben shish, it's the right column of Rashi, 4 lines from the top, 4 lines from the bottom. If you find it, please show them. It's vital to see this. The Rashi on Pasuk Zayin. 4 lines from the bottom on right column, say 718. V'imi ben shishim shana, says Rashi, kishemagia limeya zikna, when you get to old age, which is after 60, Birkei Avos says ben shishim lezikna, ha'isha krova leichashev keish. The woman closes the gap on the man. She's more closer to being the value of the man. Ulefichach ha'ish poshseches behizdakno yoser mishlish berko. A man is reduced more than a third, in other words, to less than a third. She's reduced to only a third. He's reduced to even more than a third. And now, watch this. The Amri Inchi, there's an expression, there's an old saying. Saba bevesa, when there's an old man in the house, pacha bevesa, there's an obstacle in the house, a nuisance in the house. Savta bevesa, when there's an old lady in the house, sima bevesa, there's a treasure in the house, visimana tava bevesa, and a beauty and a good omen in the house. So the Torah comes along and Torah says, oh, so what happened over here? You got an old man, and the old man's hanging around the house. You got an old lady, and she's hanging around the house. What does an old lady do in the house? An old lady basically does the same things she did as a younger lady, except maybe a little slower. But she cooks. She takes care of children. She cleans. She does lawn. She basically does what she always used to do, except that she does it a little slower. And not only that, she's got a lot of wisdom to help the younger ladies. She knows exactly which medicine to give the baby, and she knows when it's a burp and when it's what it got. She's had all the experience already. Having a bubby in the house is having an extra pair of hands, sometimes a little slower. So what about an old man in the house? Old man sits around in the house, can't find his dentures. He always needs a cup of tea. Tells you the same stories over and over and over. Tries to drag them out as long as possible because he's finally got somebody's attention. And so I'm not saying it. I'm telling you what Rashi is saying. Say, hey, tells you, hey, you know what? Let me tell you. Did I ever tell you about the time? Did everybody tell you about the time that I was with my friend Frank? And I says to him, Frank, Frank, and it tells you a story, that, and you could go nuts. What happened over here? How did he end up like this? The answer is, the Pirkei Avos, the last Mishnah in the 5th parak of Pirkei Avos says, Sivuv Leva. Grow old with Torah. When you grow old with Torah, if you got used to learning Torah, and what are you going to do when you're old? Honestly, guys. People, I always used to laugh, even as a kid, I used to laugh. People say they work their whole life, they'll save for their retirement. They're saving money for when they're retired. Then they're going to enjoy life. I got news for you. First of all, who says they're going to make it to that age? A lot can happen between 20 and 65. A lot can happen, number one. Number two, life at 65 and 70 is not quite what it was when you're 20. When we're 65, that's when we're going to go harpooning off the coast of Nova Scotia. I got news for you. There's no harpooning when you're 65. When you're 65, there's a lot of geriatrics. When you're 65, you talk to each other about aches and pains. You don't go around talking about harpooning. All those action verbs that end in ing, right? Yeah, those are going. What are you going to mountain climbing? You can't even get into bed without a ladder. You go mountain climbing? What were you planning on doing now? Travel? You travel for you to get from the kitchen to your bedroom. That's what you call travel nowadays. At 75 years old, what do you think you're going to be doing? Playing tennis? Hey, tennis, my goodness, you can barely lift a spoon. How are you going to lift a tennis racket? So what is there to do? And as a person gets older, there are aches and pains. And people aren't impressed with you. When you're young, you're the husband, the father, he's the hacker, he's got the wallet, he's the guy, he's the man, he's at work, and he's the guy. There is nothing as pathetic, because I see it on the bus. I see it on the bus all the time. You see an elderly Talmid Chacham. Look at the Gedolim, and everybody wants to be around them. Everybody wants to hear every word that comes out of their mouth. I sometimes see these guys talking to each other on the bus, these old guys. I feel bad for them. Guys 75, 80 years old, they're talking to each other. Neither one is listening to the other one. They've heard the stories before. And you could tell that he still thinks, he doesn't realize that he's old. That's why I think one of the most pathetic sights that I see, sometimes I see, you've seen this, you see a guy who's got white hair and it's pushed back and tied in a ponytail. See these guys? He's bald as a beagle, right? He's got a couple of strands over there, and he's still got a ponytail, and he's wearing blue jeans. Right? His belly is almost on the floor, and he's wearing blue jeans, and he's wearing a T-shirt, and he's got to think, the guy's making a statement. I know what the statement is. He's saying, you know what? I'm not like all these other old guys my age. I'm still young. Oh yeah? You didn't ask me. It's pathetic. So what's a person got? So if you've developed a taste for Torah when you're young, so when you can't wait to retire. You can't wait to stop being an accountant or a lawyer or working in the postal service, because you want to get to the base medrash and you want to learn another daf and you want to learn another masechta, and you got what to do. And these are the guys who run out of the house. The worst thing for marriage is when a man is hanging around the house. In a good marriage, and I'm not joking about this. In a good marriage, even with young husbands and wives, a wife breathes a sigh of relief when the husband leaves the house in the morning. In a good marriage, in a great marriage. Why? Because hanging around each other is a Hollywood fallacy that you're going to be happy by spending time. A young couple has to spend a little time together. Just a little more than most. But it's a Hollywood fallacy that more time together is better. It's not. Because when a husband and wife spend more time together, eventually that one of them is going to say something that's going to get the other one upset. The best thing, they once asked Rabbi Yashiv, a couple was having trouble with shalom bayis. So they asked Rabbi Yashiv for advice. So Rabbi Yashiv said, tell the husband to leave the house and go learn a daf Gemara. It's profound, brilliant advice. You know why? A, he's out of the house. That's the best thing for shalom bayis. See? I haven't gotten my wife upset in the last 4 hours. Give me a chance, I'm going home soon. Right? I haven't gotten her upset in the last 4 hours because I've been out of the house. Number one. Number two, he goes on to learn that he'll feel accomplished. And when he feels accomplished, his wife is happy because he's doing something productive. A wife wants her husband to do something productive. So the best thing he could do, get out of the house, and he's doing a mitzvah. Get out of the house and learn a daf Gemara. Come home, ask your wife how her day was, eat lunch, and then go out of the house again. So the Torah, a man stuck in the house, and he's what he got, even if he's not frail, he's just in everybody's way. Well, you're gonna have grandpa cook? You're gonna have grandpa take care of the children? That's what Torah is telling you. Saba bevesa, sima, saba bevesa, pacha bevesa. What are you doing in the house? Why are you in the house? So I'll tell you what, I'll get to you 1 second. My parents once asked me, years ago, they had a friend who was heading for retirement. Going back probably about 20 years. They asked me, they told me this guy, he was working as an accountant, and he has to retire. And I think the company was told they had an age where you have to retire. They told me he's in a panic because he doesn't know what he's going to do when he retires. They said to me, what do you think he should do? What would you tell a guy like this? So I said to my parents, you don't tell somebody, listen, learn all day. People, it's hard to learn all day. Let's be realistic. What I said to my parents is, first of all, what did he ever do in life whenever he wasn't working? Whenever he had a 2-week vacation, what did he do then? For many people, unfortunately the answer is, they couldn't wait for vacation to end so they could go back to work. That was the problem. For many people, that's the problem. First day of vacation is great. Second day, start getting a little antsy. By the third day, you can't wait to get back to the job that you hate. So I told him, first of all, what did he ever do? Did he ever have a hobby? Did he ever study? What did he do? That's what he should do when he's retired. Number one. Number two, have a schedule. You have to have a daily schedule. When you're retired, you get up at 8 o'clock. Say, get up at 7 o'clock. You go to Minyan, learn your daf yomi. You have a chavrusa, go home, go shopping, take a nap, eat lunch. Make sure you got a schedule. Take a walk, go to the club, something. But at the end of the day, Torah scholars, people who've developed a taste for it so that when they're old, if they're not threatened by old age. They're not threatened by it because they have what to do. To the contrary, I know older people, the wife would rather spend more time with them because the husband's always running out to learn. Learn. I've met a lot of guys like that. There are other guys, the wife will say, well, I wish he had something to do. He's driving me nuts because he's in the house. So that's what the Torah is telling you. But it doesn't happen over. It doesn't happen when all of a sudden a person's 75, 80 years old, he's going to develop taste for a tosvos. This is something got to be worked on when you're younger. You work on it when you're younger. You've got the taste for it when you're older. And then old age becomes something as enjoyable as old age could be. But you don't become a nuisance in the house. And if a person's a Talmid Chacham, the family members want him in the house. He could advise them. He teaches them. He becomes a role model for them. He's an old guy who's reporting the news to everybody. Oh, tomorrow's going to be about 75. 75 degrees tomorrow. I saw it on the news. It's going to be 75. Okay, that makes 225. Well, because you told me 3 times. So it's going to be really hot. It's going to be, he drive you nuts. That's what the Torah is telling. Somebody had a question. JJ had a question?
I had a question.
Yeah.
But like, man at least preserves theoretical ability for reproduction. Woman does not. And, it's kind of like, physically speaking, why is it so? I mean, not why nature is built this way. Why is he losing his value? I mean, like, he still has to provide for his wife.
Yeah.
He loses any of his responsibilities. Preserves some, and she does not get anything with old age.
So what's the question?
She loses her abilities with old age, and he does not.
Right.
Because essentially all essential abilities that matters, he preserves with him. So he kind of should be like.
So he's still at a higher value. Why the Torah gives the value, I don't know exactly why the value. It could be that's an interesting idea. He's keeping more of his essential value. But at the end of the day, he is higher value. He just has lost more percentage, right? Relative to who he is, he's lost more than she is. All right, see you tomorrow.